Wow. Okay, I'm probably live, so I'm going to wait a few moments to start the interview. I wait for folks to come on in. We had a little bit of problem with some of our logistics, and I'm going to make sure that people are still up and going. All right. All right, well, I believe we got to get this going. Welcome, Tech Art lovers. Welcome to another version of Tech Art Talk Live. This week, we are going to have another entry of the Procedural Gems interview series. And this week, we are going to be discussing with Eric Hanson. Eric Hanson is a VR professor at the USC School of Cinematic Arts, and he's got lots to say about VR and lots of that. And you will notice a bit of a set change as I am now broadcasting from the live campus of UCF and not from the Rhoda household. And so you're going to see a little bit of a change in scenery, but the interview with Eric was done out of my home, and so you can see a little bit of a set change. So thank you very much for your patience, and please enjoy the interview. Welcome to Tech Art Talk Procedural Gems. For the next installment, we are having a interview with Eric Hanson. Now, Eric is a professor at the USC School of Cinematic Arts, and he's also the CEO of Blue Planet VR. And Blue Planet VR is a curated collection of over 50 photogrammetric
It's a big word.
experiences. Yeah, yeah, bare little brain here. Anyway, they're unique, powerful cinematic and cultural locations around the world. You can check it out at blueplanetvr.com, and you can also download it on the Oculus, Steam, and Viveport. So, Eric, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Chris. My pleasure.
And hopefully, the audience can't appreciate this, but this is the third attempt we've made it at the getting a successful recording,
Yeah.
and I believe the third time is going to be a charm. So
Well,
again,
there's
thank
some
you
kind
very
of
much.
universal law about AV, and I'll include Zoom in this. That you can go so deep in computer graphics, but it's always the AV systems that break down.
Yeah.
You know, invariably. And I know I say that from being a teacher, right? Because it's always the AV systems that give us trouble at school. It's never the software, but
Right.
definitely that.
Oh, yeah, that it is. And if anything can go wrong, it surely will. Very
Yeah.
unforgiving.
Well, third time is a charm.
Right. So, well, Eric, you're kind of like you had a long career in film and a long career in visual effects, and now that you're teaching and you're like full time doing VR, so you're still all over the place. So, where would you say your primary motivation is right now?
Well, I mean, if my, and I'm not going to dwell too much on my career, but it is, I use it often, especially with my students, as an example of how I don't know what industry you want to call this, computer graphics, immersive media, visual effects, film. Let's just say the creative film industry maybe is a good blanket term, but within that, you can do a lot of amazing things. And I think I said this last time. Chris and I met at Digital Domain back in the early days of that, kind of legendary facility. And back then there was really no education for CG in any way. And I'm not sure how everyone ended up there, and that was actually kind of the interesting thing for me, was where did people come from? Because my degree at that time was in architectural design and architecture, and I worked in the field of architecture for I think 7 or 8 years, and had quickly developed an affection for 3D rendering in architecture, and I happened to be probably one of the first 2 or 3 people that was using it for rendering before it became a thing in that field. So I
Mm.
worked for a big company here in LA, Gensler and Associates, and we had all the film studios as our client.
Right.
And I worked for Gensler and another big firm because they had the big expensive Unix hardware that
Yeah.
there's no way an individual could afford or gain access to.
People are
So
probably still paying off those machines.
yeah, that's right. So anyway, long story short is I kind of went down the traditional road in architecture, but I got fascinated by 3D computing within that field. And then I decided one evening, or kind of on a lark, to kind of derail my traditional career and convince the partners of the company to let me develop a studio or start a studio within the company to do 3D rendering in service of the projects we did. Well, one of those happened to be Sony Pictures, which was the MGM Studios lot, the famous MGM Studios, which
Mhm.
Sony Pictures bought, oh, I don't know, this is 20, 25 years ago. And we did a renovation of it, basically a huge kind of revamp of the entire lot. And I modeled it, and I made this really, now looking back, a pretty pathetically crude animation of it kind of flying down the center street in the thing. But anyway, I ended up showing it to the head of Warner Brothers one day, who was in, we were doing some work for, and he kind of is this big heavy guy, and he looked at it, smiled at me, and then he turned to me afterwards and he said, "Son, you ought to be in the movies." And that was my big Hollywood moment. I was holding back laughter, that it was such a cliched thing. But I ended up actually approaching him and saying, "Well, I'm happy to moonlight for you." And I did that, and got started working on an early Batman film,
Right.
and doing cityscapes. And then
Mhm.
that kind of influenced me to drift over to Digital Domain and do cityscape work on The Fifth Element, of which we were on together. So anyway, but now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, I know. You were saying, what is your path
Yeah,
been all
where
about?
are you kind of
And the thing,
focusing now?
and the thing is about film is, and that's just the beginning. And since that time, since those years, we've both gone on and done a myriad of other things, and teaching among them, which I know we have in common right now.
Hmm.
But the beauty of the creative film industry, I'll call it that, is that it will support whatever your personal interests may be, or your motivation, or your where you want to go in life, in a career. And so if you remember, we had a number. I remember going to lunch at DD, and everyone around the table, I'm like, "So where did you come from?"
Hmm.
And somebody would say, "Oh, I came from Kenya. I was doing Peace Corps work." And then somebody else would say, "Oh, I was in medicine. I was doing medical illustration, and now I want to do digital humans."
Hmm.
And so whatever it is, there's like a role for you in computer graphics, in film, depending what it is you're doing. And so anyway, so I kind of stuck to, the corporate thing for many years, working in different visual effects houses and working on a bunch of films, just like you did, Chris.
Hmm.
And then, but at some point, and this is because of the aging process, I think, but I think this is probably like 14 years ago. I was at a campfire in the High Sierra with a good buddy of mine, and we were both lamenting the fact that he was lamenting the fact that all he was doing was building New York City and destroying it.
Hmm.
And I thought about it in film and visual effects, and I thought about it, and I can't. He said, "Oh, I think I've done that 4 or 5 times," and I thought about it, and I said, "Yeah, probably 4 or 5 times for me too." And so we figure we've destroyed New York 10 times over. But that's, and that's nothing compared to a lot of people in the film industry, right? I mean, New York is destroyed all the time,
Yeah. Well, you
way
didn't
more than
destroy it during
LA.
the Fifth Element, did you?
Well, I kind of consider that a destroying in a sense.
Ah, okay.
I
Yeah, Bruce
mean,
Willis is enough.
yeah, we totally manipulated it, right? We like
Yeah.
dug big holes and dug down in it. It's but yeah. So and New York suffers from that. It's like the most destroyed. LA is the most maligned city, but LA is the most destroyed. Or I'm sorry, but New York is the most destroyed city, I would say, in film. But nonetheless, yeah. So anyway, so about and we were sitting around a campfire and kind of just lamenting all this. And I've always been a big outdoor adventurer and flew hang gliders and ride mountain bikes and hike and climb and all that. And I never connected that to my career though. It was always kind of like recreation on the side. But I still loved exploration. And I eventually realized that the reason I got into CGI was because I like to explore software and imagery and art. And it's kind of the same urge, whether it's you're doing it physically or you're doing it cerebrally in front of a machine. So anyway, but the point is, after talking to him, and I had been doing features for close to 20 years at that point, and we just said, look, let's take all the skills that we know, all the things that we've learned, but let's apply them to outdoor based centric projects, which can be archaeology, which can be cultural heritage, it could be natural science, science visualization, a number of things that are based in the real world. So as I say, I made a pivot where I decided to like kind of leave the world of fiction and enter the world of, or return back and just celebrate things that are in the real world. And that's what I'm doing in VR now. And then VR came along and immersive media came along I got involved in. And we started a company together, long story short, about that time. And we never had a business plan. It kind of started from one phone call. And then we'd finish that and just happen to get another phone call. And it just has been going like this for like 13, 14 years. And it's always been the right amount of work, and we've hired people and, it's usually, it was Greg and I most of the time, but we would hire up and come down and, as needed. And about 2 years ago, I decided to make a switch and start a different company and not do as much service, but kind of start my own projects. And that's what Blue Planet VR is.
Yeah.
So it's something I've
Create
been
your own
wanting to do
content.
for a long time. And it's a bunch of natural outdoor locations. So anyway, so do you want me to show some images or
Oh,
something?
I'd love it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So let me share screen. And this will reflect a bit of what I'm talking about. This is a presentation that I put together kind of for school and kind of for other purposes, but um, let me just tab through kind of quick on this. I'm not going to go through all the bullet points on this stuff, but this is kind of like talking about immersive media. So I teach 2 classes currently. This is 502, Experiments in Immersion, and it's kind of moving on from a flat screen. The first thing we do is we study stereo, 3D stereoscopy, and we have our own little baby IMAX that they gave us, which is pretty cool at
Wow.
USC. So we use that little baby IMAX to kind of explore stereo filmmaking. And then unfortunately we don't have a dome theater. God, I wish we did. But this is a format that I worked in my own company. So then we move over to, so we go from flat screen to deep screen stereo, then we go to immersive 360 180, meaning hemispherical full dome. And what does that mean when you lose the frame in cinema? And then from there, we go over to full VR, and that's using a headset. And of course, today's software, like this is a Redshift out of Maya, it's just so easy and fun. This is somebody who didn't even know how to do 3D. And he did this really nice abstract piece where the light is changing and the apertures of the architecture is manipulating. And it's just a great, great little thing. But they make very short little films, usually of a linear nature. So what we call 3 degree of freedom in VR. And then people wanted more than that. So I took them over to, I created a studio class called Creative Production. in VR. And what we do here is they have a whole semester now to make a short film. So it's kind of more of a studio. And then John, while they were around, gave us a couple of their big cameras, and so I offered that up. And then Andor CG. This is a frame, a really powerful film that a woman made on opioid addiction and she interviewed a woman who was opioid addicted that gave birth to an opioid addicted baby, and it was a just a wrenching story to hear her voice. And these are kind of the symbologies of that's going along with her narration. And it's just oh my God, it's a powerful piece in VR. This is, of course, an odd, flattened look at it, but it's really was a profound piece. So anyway, that's the kind of things that we get into. And so it's still cinematic, but in this class, I also introduce them to real time with Unity and Unreal. And that way, we talk about 6 degree of freedom, where you can kind of inhabit a space. And that's what I'll show you in a minute through
Eric, before we go on, could you
Blueprint.
explain a little bit what exactly are the 6 degrees of access then for when you go into
So
VR?
yeah, so 3 degree of freedom. Well, these don't really show it. I don't know if it's in this slideshow, not really. But 3 degree of freedom just simply means you have rotation available. So every cell phone has an IMU in it, and that's the way the compasses work, et cetera, in a cell phone. Well, cell phones was what revitalized VR because it has a high density display coupled with an IMU, and that's what used to cost like $40,000, not that long, like 12, 15 years ago. And of course now it's in everybody's pocket. So and actually a researcher at USC, Mark Polis, was the one who made that early realization and created Google Cardboard, which was the snap-in phone thing. And Google kind of took his open source research and put their name on it, but that's Mark Polis's work from SC. But in any case, that's so what that allows you to do is look around in a world, and it could be shot from a video camera, right, which is fixed in space. And you can tell really compelling stories. Like, in other words, this image came from a pre-render, probably in Mental Ray, I think, at that time. But nonetheless, it was pre-rendered. So therefore, you can look around and things happen and a story is told, but you're not really inhabiting the space. You're just kind of witnessing it, being able to look around. And it's novel. Your brain goes, well, it's kind of cute. I kind of feel like I'm there. But it doesn't really do what 6 degree does. So 6 degree, whoops, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong slide.
So
What
in
doesn't
other
matter.
words, you're kind of bound in one spot there where you're
You're
limited to
bound in
only
one spot.
rotations.
And I could animate this camera in Maya, through a scene, and that's fine. That you can have motion. It's not like it has to be static.
Mm-hmm.
Most people use 360 video cameras statically, although people are using, plenty of GoPro type of 360 cameras now to do any moving thing. But so you can move through it, but it's still 3 degrees, meaning you can't shift your position by your will, right? So then if you bring a real-time gaming engine into play, Unreal or Unity, then you can have a VR experience like a VR gaming experience where you can inhabit the world. You get parallax, you get a strong sense of presence, and you can also roam around and do things interactively. Now, my attitude or opinion about that is that that's great if you want to build CG worlds and do that. But again, where I'm going to end up talking about is photogrammetry, which is capturing the world realistically. And there's something magical that happens when you bring the real world and be able to inhabit it, walk around. A little bit different than gaming, where it's great to be able to do all that, but you're in a simulated world. Whereas when you bring the real world in and provide that, it's just crazy. It's crazy magical. But anyway, that's the difference. So you have to have a real-time engine to get 6 degree, and you also have to have a headset like the Vive or the Rift or any number of other tethered headsets, and you need a workstation to do that. Now, of course, we have the Quest now coming out, or it has been out, with Oculus, and that allows you to do it with a mobile,
Mm-hmm.
without the cable. And that's kind of where VR is going, to be honest. But that's a simple explanation. One
Thank you.
one has rotational freedom, one has rotational plus positional. What that really means is it's more presence. You really feel like you're living in that world. And it does something at the neurological level to you which is highly compelling.
Yeah, maintaining that presence and doing whatever is necessary to kind of keep that suspension of disbelief going as long as possible is, the key factor here.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just I just find it terrific. But anyway, so yeah, so moving on. These are some of the shows. There's the fifth and some other things that I did. I headed up the day after tomorrow modeling of the New York City. And this is a terrible Robin Williams movie, Bicentennial Man. And did some work over Disney feature animation. So anyway, but, and then here's like what kind of got me started with, I had done cities and urban things, and then I was at Sony ImageWorks and working on Castaway, and that was kind of one of my early light bulbs that went off like, oh, I can also do the natural world. So this, in fact, is not Fiji. This is just up the PCH near where Tom Hanks lives, and so he didn't have to travel too far to shoot this that day. He didn't have to go down to Fiji, and that was again matte paint, largely matte painting and CG water and so forth. But it's like, hey, we could do anything. It doesn't have to be cityscapes either. And that was, of course, the work on Day After and showing the before and after of that. That's actually hugely an effects film. And and then these are, so I started teaching early on and, kind of for selfish reasons, trying to do it in exchange for software and hardware with Silicon Graphics. But then I quickly enjoyed it and thought, well, this is kind of a fun thing to do on the side. I like the people that I come across. I like working with students and teaching how things are done. And I just have always kind of loved it. So I've always done that my whole career. And now I'm full-time over at SC for the last 12 years or so. But I also run my own company so I can balance it. But this is, here, I'll set this play. So I started a class called Digital Set Construction to do environments. And I take students out to the desert to a really nice place called Red Rock Canyon. Not the one by Vegas, but the one by LA. And we capture panoramas and do photogrammetry and then do manipulation. So we change things rather dramatically from what they were to start with. And this is like, that's a classic VFX shot there where we're kind of augmenting objects and buildings, but it could be different weather or, just entire reworks of the scene like these two.
So you're
And
teaching camera tracking as well.
oh yeah, tracking's part of it. But then again, when you do panoramic work in Maya, you don't have to track because you're not shooting live footage. See,
Ah,
that's
okay.
one cool, and that's the other thing I should say is I got hooked on 360 panoramas way back, and I still like, it's the perfect way to get started in immersive media. And if you do visual effects work, like, so the camera work is animated, that's a Maya camera animated, but you don't have to track the object because it's a static background and it travels with the camera, if that makes any sense. But yeah, oftentimes you may need to track as well. Okay, so let me go on from that. And I'm just going to go over this really quick, but this is like one turning point I had was as I said, I rejected fantasy in favor of reality, of just telling stories in the real world. And it's partially because I've always been into the outdoors and I just wanted to travel more also. So it's kind of that. And I kind of rejected working for corporations and starting my own. And these are the kind of things that I've been involved with in the last phase of my career. But anyway, so yeah, these are just places that I've been fortunate enough to travel and capture. Iceland and Nepal, went up to Everest Base Camp and different things, and different places in the Southwest. So just stuff that fascinates me. And I've had, like I say, the luck to be able to go to these spots. But one thing that started us early in this company was to develop gigapixel imaging, and this is a mosaicing of simple still photography, but with robotic devices to get basically just an insane amount of resolution. So this is like one image. We shot this in Yosemite, and this is a 2K theatrical film. You might think IMAX is high res, but it's still a postage stamp. And then you go up to 4x5 and 8x10 large format still, and this is at 90,000. Now this is nothing today. Like we just did our biggest image last summer at 300,000 pixels, and even that's not news anymore. So this technique, we were kind of one of the first ones to bring it into production, but it's and it's a still format, so you have to, for the use of film, it would have a limited use.
So
but it's still
now,
fascinating.
now, since that's a still image, what would you do with something like that? Because the aliasing, you'd have to down res it in order. I mean, when you sample it onto film, because you're actually getting smaller than the granules on the film. Well, they don't use granules on film anymore. But you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. The sensors. I mean, when you get that thing, those pixels reduced down to a ratio where they're smaller than the sensor.
Well, it's the same tech used in gaming that I'm sure you know about, which is MIP mapping, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this image I think was like 100K or something like that, and but it's this level of detail is resident in the image everywhere. And this was we when Google Maps came out, they had an open API, and we rejigged it to point away from their map and over to this image. And this was a big viral event on the net, probably about 12 years ago. And this launched our company. We got all kinds of phone calls. That started the phone call thing after this. But as far as going into film or online on the web, is like here, let me just show you one thing. This is kind of fun. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I will. And this is I think you'd enjoy this. So, and this is one software that only runs still on Internet Explorer, unfortunately, but which is why I'm showing it here. But it's our best gigapixel demo, although we have a couple. But if we look at, but they had a thing called Silverlight for a while, which is kind of like Flash. And so this is that Yosemite project, and we hired, we didn't hire them. They were all friends of ours. There was a bunch of volunteers. We had like 70 photographers come out. We were asked to by the park to capture for a park geologist the entirety of the park in gigapixel to help study rockfall and hopefully be able to, well, not predict it, but just understand it for public safety. So this is a package called Silverlight, and the cool thing about this is you can roll in, and it's a big image by itself, and it'll start soft and it'll get a little sharper as it loads. And these are the companies that sponsored it and this and that. We got Canon and Google to support it and all this stuff at the time. But anyway, going into here, like let's just look at this image. So as I roll in here, I can see that resolution, but let's just go ahead and keep going in and just keep driving in, right? So this is a gigapixel zoom. You can see it gets finer and more resolute as you go. And that's over the entirety of the image. So I can go over and see who is standing next to the falls that day right there. But the cool thing is this Silverlight allowed you to have multiples of these. So I could go over, so like this is what I usually show is that you might say, hey, wait a minute, what's a swimming pool doing in Yosemite? I didn't know they had a swimming pool there. So let's go over and look at it from the other side of the valley. And let's see this view. I'm closer to it here. The other shot was taken like from right here or something. So let's go down in here, and now I can really drill down and see exactly who was swimming that day. And that's just one part of this image. And the other fun part about this is you can, if you know Yosemite at all, let's look at Half Dome. And you might know there's an incredible trail up there. So let's zoom in. This is taking a minute. There they come. And there's the hikers that got up to the top that day. And you might go, well, how the hell did they get up? Well, let's look at it. So we had 20 teams all shooting at the same time. We shot 10,000 images in 45 minutes to make these images. So this is all the same point in time. And then as we go in here, see, now we can see the hikers going up the cable to the top from that point of view. And this is the best one, is looking at it from this team's work over here. And now we can get in and see it comes in a little soft and it'll get sharper. And there's the staging area, and there's the hike to the top, which is
Fantastic.
exciting for sure. But anyway, but this is gigapixel. That's classically what gigapixel does. And then I'll show you one last example of this. We put out our largest image last summer. Oh, wait, was it spring? No, this spring. And this is on El Capitan. Any excuse to go shoot Yosemite, we do. And then this is, we know a famous rock climber there, a well-known rock climber, who who climbs all the big walls, and he's climbed El Capitan, the biggest, one of the biggest walls in the world, and he's climbed it 100 times. So we've worked with him to create this image. So he's done all the routes, and but he also climbed it for us with a buddy of his in 7 hours. So this is zooming
Wow.
in and actually seeing. So what we did to make this image, and this follows his entire route. So his buddy Roger was in yellow and he was in red. And this shows every move that they did going up. So what we did is we put an 800 mil lens on a Canon 5D at the time on a gimbal, and then we shot all throughout the day in the 7 hours, like every 5 or 10 minutes, as they made the moves. And then we went back the next day and used the same lens to create the big mosaic of the whole wall. And then we comped it together. This was a crazy project. It took us literally years to finish this because, this is just a passion project.
So
This
what did
we
you end
did
up doing
kind of
with
for
all the
fun.
shadowing, though? Because the shadow changes so dramatically over those 7 hours.
Well, we made sure, so it mostly changes on the climbers, and you can find errors in this easily. Like here, the shadow is right above. That's like high noon. And the face we shot over 2 hours. We took 2,000 images with a robotic head over 2 hours to shoot. So there is some drift, but we made sure we centered it at the center of the day, so the shadow wouldn't move much. And we didn't want shadows in the image anyway. We wanted this for climbers to be able to go in and inspect the rock surfaces. But so here you can see the shadows straight down, but look at this. If we go down, you can imagine. See, now the shadow is more from the east in the morning. See, now it's really long, right? And then, but this guy was shot midday, so you can see the fiction in the image now. So that part is fictitious. But anyway, so this was kind of fun, and we sell big posters of this that are ginormous. And then and this actually, the park just licensed the work. It's going to be in a big installation, and they made like an 11-foot long print of this that'll be kind of cool. And this is actually a big rock fall that they had. We went back, this whole piece right here, it's enormous, fell, and you can see where it fell right here, and it just boom, hit there and scoured. There was trees throughout here, wiped them all clean, and went down here. It actually killed 2 people. So that's why we did the original work in the park, was for the park geologist, so he can try to protect people from stuff like this. Yosemite is actually a very dangerous park.
Oh yeah,
Um,
there's climbers falling like snowflakes from.
yeah, but anyway, I digress. So I'm just going to jam, because I know time's not unlimited here. So what I'm going to do is just jam through these. So these are other like gigapixel shots, and then we integrated it with terrain data so that you could make visual effects from it. And so here we can integrate Maya water or Maya clouds, and it'll interact with the photography in such a way that it's treating it like a 3D model. And that took us into full dome of trying to capture environments spherically. And then we took that, and then we started working and doing work with filmmakers in the full dome world, which is a great community, by the way. I really like the full dome world and scene community. And there's a group called IMERSA, which is their professional organization, and that's going on right now. They have one more talk, I think, this Friday that anybody can sign up for. So IMERSA, IMERSA.org. But anyway, this is a big cutaway of one of the pools in Yellowstone, and the camera starts in really tight, pulls back. We use gigapixel. We used all kinds of tricks on that shot. But this is, again, for hemispherical theater. And then we began to, then photogrammetry, I should say, started getting really good. Greg, my business partner, has a long history with it. And, but it started about 5 years ago, getting really, really good, based on all kinds of factors, GPUs, algorithms, et cetera. So this is one of the first things we did, where we just shot this with a DSLR and a pole and just walked the Ferry Building in San Francisco. Was able to get this, and this was used by a dome production in Golden Gate Park at Cal Academy. So anyway, but then, and this is photogrammetry, where you can capture environments with simple DSLRs. We use carbon poles to get up high, kind of like having a drone. You don't have to rely on a drone too much with a large pole. And then laser scanner. And laser scanners are very useful for architecture. Natural terrain features, not as necessary, but we were actually on this trip, we were evaluating the efficacy of both techniques and where, the strengths and weaknesses were of each. We did that for Autodesk. And then this is one slide that just kind of shows, again, I'm just going to hustle to get through this, but this is a sliding scale of capture technique that we've come up with. We've refined for anything from like, aerial imagery using GIS data from shuttles or aircraft, going down to chartering a fixed wing or a helicopter to do photogrammetry from. We've done a lot of using drones, great technique these days. Carbon pole getting lower, on the ground using DSLRs and laser scanners and stereo, spherical, and gigapixel panoramas using little robotic devices. And then we came up with helped a friend start a company to make these devices, which are gigapixel macros. You can go really small. And so this is kind of like the techniques we rely on to recreate. And we even came up with this crazy apparatus, which was going to get made, and then the tsunami hit in Fukushima and dinged Canon's plant, and they had to back out of the deal. But this would have been really amazing to do this too, and I still might do this anyway in the future. But we went on and did a version of it for David Brashears, the guy that directed the IMAX Everest film, and helped him, went up to the Himalaya and helped him shoot and capture some of the Himalaya data, and that got used in the recent film Everest. So what you're looking at here is all day. You're looking at these guys are on stage probably. I didn't do the shot, but I'm guessing, and the rest of it is from that data. And then I'm just going to blast through, and then I'll show you some in Blue Planet. But these are other oddball projects. Got to work with Ai Weiwei and a Navajo artist on a weird collaboration they did, which is super fun. And we made that for it was like a land art event. And then we did photogrammetry and turned it into a full dome film that celebrated that. And then we ended up doing some work with Bjork through a student of mine who was her director for a number of years, Andy Wang, and very talented guy. And we ended up doing some scanning and recreation of this environment used in a film that she had for MoMA. And then she released a VR product, and we did some photogrammetry for the selection scene of that. We got into 360 VR at that point with Denamachi. I'm just going to travel here quicker. Did some stuff for a laser fusion lab in California, which is an amazing place. And that's when real time happened. So everything we had done at that point was pre-rendered. And then Unity and Unreal started getting really good, and the Vive headset came out, which is 6 Degree of Freedom. And so what we did is we brought in this little Egyptian tomb that Greg had shot in Egypt, and we had what I call a Watson Bell moment. And Greg got this working on the Vive and said, "Eric, get over here." And I put my head in that, and I just, man, it was like I got run over by a truck. It was like, this is unbelievable that you can do this. Everything I'd ever worked on my whole career took me to this moment. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5-6 years, pretty much every day, is working on this type of thing. And I just find it magical. And like I say, it has profound immersion. It's a conjunction of all kinds of great tech that's out there right now. And it's untapped. I mean, I'm one of the first to put a title out heavily using it. There's a few others, but generally there's not as much kind of creative work done with this. It's usually done like in visual effects or in gaming, just to make backgrounds. That's like Quixel Megascans is really good for building up game titles. Anyway, long story short, so here's some of the stuff I'll show you in the headset in just a second. And this is, these are the meshes. So this is the photogrammetric model. This one I'm doing relighting on it, experimenting with that. And then this is a Native American ruin from a cultural heritage project I'm on. And we did some work with Frontline and Nova. We captured this glacier in Greenland to talk about climate change. That's where the glacier was 10 years ago. And it used to be way out here, and now it's way back there and much smaller. Turns out it's all about what's going on underneath the water, they found. And then I'm working on just a remarkable project, probably the finest ever. And this is a Buddhist art grottos and caves on the Silk Road in China. And big, long story in this I won't get into, but basically they're these remarkable caves. This is kind of the pinnacle of Asian art, and these are all photogrammetric models that you're looking at here. And you can walk around them in VR, which and feel the scale of them too, which is really quite cool. And then lastly, I decided to make my own content, and that's what this is. So instead of showing you that lousy screen capture, and that was just saying it's a bright future with all this. So now what I'll do is I'll call up the experience and just show you a minute or two of it.
Okay, great.
We're doing okay on time, right?
Oh, perfect.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to move my camera up so you don't see me looking stupid with a headset on. And so this is the title called Blue Planet VR. I just brought this out. I'm gonna have to speak a little louder over the music.
Everything is fine.
Okay. And one of my controllers is up here. Hold on. At a minute. Okay, so anyway, what the idea on this was I had a fevered dream one night about VR. I had a lot of wild VR dreams. And I woke up and I was in a massive human eye. And I thought that was, oh, and actually, you know what I have to do? I have to restart this because the resolution, anytime you exit to the game from the game, it kills the resolution. Okay. And so I wanted to recreate that. So I got an anatomical eye model and I built this. And then within that, I made it more architectural and I added a selection of these spheres. And I'll try to go slower because I know it'll get nauseous if I crank my head around. But there's a number of different experiences you can have. So like, let's try Antelope Canyon. So this is about, it's actually close to 50 scenes. These are all captures that I've done over the years.
Now, how long does it take you to put together one of your experiences?
It's a good question. Probably to shoot, you know, actually it's in an afternoon to shoot these, but to actually do the post-production work, probably, I don't know, let's say 3 weeks per location, maybe.
Okay. Now is that working kind of part-time here and there in between classes, or is that would be full-time?
That would be considered kind of full-time.
Mm-hmm.
So we open up with a little description of where you are. You can click that away. My two hand controllers. There's construction here on them. But then you can kind of look around and see. Now, you don't have the ability to see this in stereo or in 6 degrees. So as I move my head from side to side, I'm getting a real sense of being. And so this is unfortunately best seen with a headset.
Yes,
but
I would agree. The scene is
kind of experience
epic.
Space and see I can teleport where I want to move to. Now to return back, I'll just hit the home button. And actually, I just got these new controllers, so I'm not used to these. Okay, and we're back. And then because I used to be a hang glider pilot, this is kind of fun. I decided to finally do some CG hang gliding, which I kind of resisted for years, but I had to do it on this. And so if once this loads, we'll be in an amazing canyon in Iceland. And we'll be right on the cliff. So I'll click that away. And if I look up, I can see a glider up around me. This is a stereoscopic panorama I took of my glider. So it really feels like you're holding a hang glider like you do. And hang gliders love sheer cliffs. Here we are in a sheer cliff in a spectacular location. And I have two arrows now pointing up from the hand controllers. All I'm going to do is I'm going to press my trigger fingers and I'm going to run right off the cliff and start flying. Right? And now I've just launched like you do in a glider. And now wherever I aim, I'll fly to. And again, the audio of the waterfall will get louder. Let's go ahead and turn and go up canyon. Maybe I'll aim up a little higher. Maybe I'll go straight up. Actually, you wish you could do that in the water. Then I'll kind of start to fly down. So this is a very slow, graceful experience, which is what hang gliding is all about. It's not like wingsuiting or speed flying and paragliding. But that's the idea, is that you can have these really beautiful, serene experiences. So anyway, that's a taste of that.
Now,
I'll
this
go
seems
back
like one
out.
of the your larger experiences. Actually, pure volume wise, this has got to be one of
Oh,
your largest ones.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so this was shot actually from a helicopter to create that photogrammetric model. Actually, I'm not hitting back, so I think I'm going to quit it right there. Oops, sorry. I think I just found a bug with my new hand controllers. Okay.
Uh-oh.
But in any case, all right, so let me get the camera back and we can wrap this up. Good. Okay.
All right. Well, that
So that's kind of what that's about. Now, if any of your audience has headsets, you can download a free demo of that that has 3 scenes. And you can experience that for free. It's on Steam. Actually, the only free demo is on Steam. So go to Steam for that. But it's also available on Oculus, excuse me, and Viveport as well.
Gotcha. Now, those are really fantastic, and having gone through the experience myself, I can really urge the audiences to get in there and see this because the 2D representation just does not do it justice because it's fully three-dimensional and you
Yeah.
can fully go on and explore. Now, I've seen it said that folks have said that VR is kind of like going through a lull right now.
Oh,
Uh,
bullshit.
but
No, no, no.
but
Not
what's your
whatsoever.
opinion on that?
Yeah, no, don't believe it. There's some funny things out there that I'm going to forget the memes now, but basically people are. It's kind of like the same reason the press writes sensational titles on any myriad of topics is
Mhm.
they're kind of trying to sell their journalism more than they are doing an accurate job. And VR, people love to say that because the investors pulled out. All the VCs pulled out about 3, 4 years ago. But actually,
Right.
I'm happy about that because they were bringing in investment when it really wasn't ready to go wide. And
Mm.
and VR is a slow adoption, and it's for a number of reasons. It's going to change, I think, when Apple finally releases their glasses. But for now, it's a niche. It's kind of a limited market. So the investors felt like I'm getting out of here. I'm not seeing the big huge returns. So what it did is it got rid of the snake oil salesman and it left the field to mature on its own. And believe me, nobody who's sincere about the field is bailed out. There's amazing things going on in the field. If we have more time, I'd show you my slides. I show my students. I'd show the true expanse of what's happening in VR, and it's massive. And if anything, the pandemic has strengthened it.
Yeah.
I'm getting more interest now than I ever have in photogrammetry because it can, be used in so many social ways, in during these days of isolation.
Right. Now that's what I was thinking. I myself am having a difficult time keeping my students enthralled with this, but I am thinking that this isolation, keeping people away, is a natural calling card for VR because
Yeah,
not only does it require a unique headset per person, but it also lends itself to more of a collaborative, mutual um, experience where multiple individuals at the same time are sharing the same experience, but they can still be separate at the same time.
yeah. And I mean, if you're looking for a great social experience, mine are all solitary, but there's a museum of other realities, which is really terrific. And as a matter of fact, I think I'll be embedded in that next week. There's a Vancouver Film Festival volumetric event that I'll be part of that they're going to host it in the Museum of Other Realities. But if you have a tethered headset, it's usable for Steam. That is a terrific place to go.
Yeah, fantastic. I think
Yeah.
was it we had Kevin Mack
Yeah,
last week
yeah,
on.
yeah. Kevin is the guy who got me into it,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah.
Well, very cool. Well, Eric, thank you very much for showing us and sharing with your passion today. I must admit that this is my passion as well, and I'm doing whatever I can when I'm not teaching to kind of reach out and kind of explore these more immersive experiences myself. And I have
Well,
much to
that's what I
talk to you
say. We're
about.
not, we're not accountants or bankers.
Right.
Not to upset any of them out there, but this is a field where again you forge your own path, and that's, as I tell my students, that's the real creativity of it. The work is creative, but how you conduct your career in your lifetime is the real creative genius that you might have, because you can, if you follow your interests, you'll end up, doing some interesting things. So it's all there to support you, and you can bend it in any way you want. So I'm always very optimistic to my students about the field, even though visual effects has gone through some tough times and expansion and all that. It's actually, hey, it's a great time to travel the world, right?
That's right.
So, well, not right now, but next year. But
It will go back.
yeah, exactly. We'll be back normal, hopefully sooner than later. But in any case, yeah, I mean, I just think it's a terrific field and career. And like I say, you can make it your own, which is very
Yeah.
cool.
Well, those are very motivational and inspirational words. So thank you very much. I think this is a totally exciting category. And so please, so if some folks wanted to get in contact with you, would they go through blueplanetvr.com?
That's right. That'll take you there. Yeah, there's some
Okay.
email there. But
All
yeah,
right.
you bet.
Very good. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you very much, Eric. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And thank you very much for the Tech Art Talk Live audience. Thank you very much for coming today. And I hope you got a lot of good, exciting, immersive experience for you. Okay.
All right.
Oh, we'll see
You
you
bet.
next week.
All right. Thanks.
Bye. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us for the interview with Eric Hanson. And if anyone is interested in VR or immersive experiences, go check out Eric's website at blueplanetvr.com and download his app. It'll be really worth your time. I really enjoy it. Thank you again for joining us for Tech Art Talk Live. If you liked what you see, please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you go over to LinkedIn, check me out at Chris Rhoda. And we also have a techartistedu.com to hold the information. And also there is the Facebook channel on Chris Rhoda. And for anyone who's interested, there's the Orlando Houdini Users Group. So tune in next week when we will be talking and unraveling all of the mysteries associated with linear lighting. And until then, have a great week. See ya.